I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking about how do we know that we're on the right path during the fertility journey. There can be a lot of confusion. We may have sort of deviated away from trusting our intuition. So how do we get back to feeling hopeful, to feeling that what we're doing is the right path for us, and really help us, navigate these, especially with the fertility journey, can be filled with a lot of uncertainty. So we are talking about some of the energy we may have felt in January, the new energy that we're feeling in February. We're going to be pulling some cards for you for February. So this is all about energy and really helping you reframe your thoughts for February. So thanks for listening. Take care. Hey there, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fab Fertile and your host. I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone struggling with infertility, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today, I'm welcoming Nichole Causey to the podcast, and we're digging into how to trust you are on the right path during the fertility journey. Nichole Causey is a Reiki Master who specializes in manifestation, self-love, confidence, trusting your intuition, and fulfilling desires. Thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who's on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Hey, Nichole, excited to have you back on the podcast.
Hello, Sarah.
Hey, so definitely go check out. We've done a couple other episodes with Nichole on the podcast. So definitely check those out. And we had during our series on faith and fertility, Nichole spoke on that series as well. So definitely check out some prior episodes. Today, we are recording this on February what is this today? The 10th? The 9th,
yeah.
The 9th. So recording for February the 9th. And at the end of this, our chat today, we're going to be pulling some cards for February. So excited for to get into some of these questions and really to kind of give you some, we're doing, the uncertainty, and especially during this journey, right? We may not know kind of what's going to happen. So if the spiritual side of things, the energetic side of things resonates with you, this is your episode. So I'm excited to dig into it. So let's, January the 19th, we're going to do all these things. And then, cold, wherever you are in the world, things take over. And also the stuff that's going on in the world right now. We just lose focus on the things that we've said we're going to do. So how do we kind of keep moving forward when we're not even sure? We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. How do we move forward with intention, I guess?
I stopped doing those New Year's intentions about 2 years ago. And instead, I started focusing on what I wanted to feel and experience each month. So first of all, totally suggest that for next year. And that makes it more fluid, and it's easier to change and adapt when that happens. And so first of all, I would start there. Second of all, when you have those intentions, really figuring out the reason why you wanted something to change. So what is it that you're not enjoying, and what it is that you want? So when we get into manifestation, there's a disconnect there, obviously. And in that disconnect, first of all, there needs to be a ton of grace, but then also a ton of accountability. Because if you want something to change, you don't have to wait for the new year to change it. You can change it right now. You can change it tomorrow. You can change it tonight. So I think remembering that, first of all, everything is temporary, and that you have the choice to react and or respond is really powerful. It's all up to you, and you can choose to totally let something go. If it's too hard to do, let it go and give yourself grace for that, and let go of that guilt and shame, and move on into something that's a lot easier. Like, I just started trying to drink a gallon of water a day, Sarah.
Good for you.
It's really hard, but I did it one day this week. So I'm like, okay, let's celebrate the wins. I've done it one day. And today is the new day, Sarah. So I might drink a gallon of water again today. But if I don't, whatever, no sweat. I tried, and I know that. And I'm just going to give myself grace and hold myself more accountable the next day.
Yeah, a lot of us are really hard on ourselves, right? Where we set these, that's why the intentions, and you're like, I even had one that I've been doing for ages, which was yoga. And then January, I got sick. And then yoga, I think I've done yoga maybe once since January. And I'm like, I was doing it 2 to 3 times a week. So the yoga mat sits there and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, but I just, I've been walking every day. So I've got that, but it's interesting how then we want to put this, this pressure on ourselves. So all this, like, we got to do all these things. And for me, it's, and it's weird. I have this whole thing where, like if there's dirty dishes, I need to do them right now, because if I come back later, I don't want to see them. And then now I'm actually trying to be like, because I like to have things kind of organized. For me, I'm now kind of like, okay, how would it be if I kind of came back and they were there? I'm not going to like it, but I'm like, do I need to do it this moment? So I kind of go back and forth on that. So that's you, where you're like, I got to always do everything and get it done before I can have my, like, as I call it, my special time. I need my special time.
Yes. Oh
Where's
my gosh,
my time?
special time. Yes. But then it's like when you put all that pressure on yourself, you feel really heavy and really icky. And then if you're like me, you feel overwhelmed, and then you're stuck and you're not doing anything. And it's actually a lot worse than what you were doing before, which was something. So
yeah, and it's interesting, to see our patterns in that piece, right? So you got out this huge list of things to do, or alternatively, where maybe it's hard to get motivated. So it is about doing something every day, and really, we have these weekly meetings with our practitioners. We do deep dives into case reviews, and at the beginning of the meeting, we're like, okay, what are the wins? And so sometimes it's like it's like to celebrate the small wins. Oh, wait, someone is finally, after years of, not going to the bathroom or something, their stools are great. Or, oh my goodness, someone that hasn't slept for years, they're finally sleeping. Or, someone's, we've had people like someone who had eczema for years. Now the eczema was gone after, 2 or 3 weeks. So and those are actually huge wins. And, but, obviously we're in a program for pregnancy. So people are like, we only have to celebrate the pregnancy, and which we do, but all along the way. And that's for someone that's in the program too. And people that are listening, that it's about celebrating all the little things you do each day. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah. I've started drinking water. And now the more I drink, the more I want. Right. So yeah,
and I think we're so programmed to focus on the negative because it feels so heavy, because it is heavier. Really, when you talk about frequency and vibrations, it is a lot heavier. So it's more noticeable. When we're feeling lighter and joyful, it's not always as noticeable. So it's easier to go to that negative side and remember all those negative things. And then when the positive happens, you're like, oh, that's great. All right, moving on, because I'm not used to this feeling, and it's light and it's airy, and I'm more comfortable with the heavy because that's more normal for me.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I was talking to someone the other day. I'm like, how do you release if there's like 2 bricks on your shoulders and you're just the pressure of the world on you? How do you leave that and put it to the side?
And I feel like speaking of January, I feel like that's what January was.
Yeah.
I feel like we just need like a whole reset for the year. January didn't count. January's out. We're just going to pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. So what the heck?
It's back there in 2021.
Literally. So I was sick for a little bit. But even before that, I'm like very goal oriented. Let's get things going, blah, 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 taking off my list, keep moving. And I'm like, January, like I was just, first of all, and we'll talk about this later, I kind of felt like not grounded. I felt more anxious, and I don't necessarily feel anxious a lot. I think once in a while I come out, but I felt anxious, not grounded. I felt this deep level of boredom, which I haven't felt. And I used to get that feeling of boredom like a lot. It was like, because I wasn't fulfilled or something, but there was like this boredom, which is the root cause of that, usually fear or stress, something going on. And I was like trying to I don't know. There was something going on in January. So I think, and you experienced that too. So what's your take?
Oh yeah. I told you I was so cranky in January, and looking back, I probably should have had some more alone time, but it's fine because we're just letting it go. We're breathing through it, moving on. But January was so full of growth opportunities. So talk about flipping the script from negative to positive. January was so heavy in emotions, especially when the full moon came. The full moon was in Cancer, I believe, and that is so intense for emotions. But then you tag that along with the fact that it's January, so it's the new year starting. It's just all compounded into one big, massive, energy. And it was really intense. And looking back now that I've thought through it and I've had some awareness and we're all kind of coming together and we're like, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? That was some opportunity for growth to happen. So if you had the same month of January as Sarah and I did, look back into your month and really start trying to kind of pinpoint what things came up for you that are presenting themselves to be healed. So what triggers came up? What was bothersome for you? What was below the surface? Kind of like what you were just talking about a minute ago behind the boredom. What really sparked that, and get into the nitty-gritty of that so that you can have more awareness the next time it pops up. I think that those moments really happen. Those intense emotional moments happen because the universe is like, hey, you're not paying attention over here. So we're going to make this a whole lot worse so that you can come look over here because we're over here and you're over there. And we need you to come back over here. Okay. And they're just like, come on, come on, come on, come on. So that was a wee bit intense in February. Started February 9th, feeling better. Finally feels like it's a new energy. We're getting there, Sid. We're getting there.
Literally. So I have a spiritual coach I work with, and she was talking about for February, like laugh more. Cause I'm like, I think January, I was like I was too serious or something. She's like, something about like letting okay, you can go through tough things and it's not about being like, positive Polly or something. If you can go through tough things and feel that emotions, we're not about, just coping with shopping, drinking, whatever, avoiding. So it's feeling it. And then, but then how do you kind of have some laughter around it? Like for me, my laughter, is the dog. Literally, I'm like, I think I talk that I am the dog. Like it's like this silly, obviously I spent too much time in the house with my husband and I, but, so whatever is for you, kind of like that laughter piece, which I think is because sometimes I'm like, oh my, why am I my husband I married him because he's so funny. And I'm like, I'm like, why are you so serious? I married you to make me laugh. And even he got, so it's like, so I like the laughter piece. So that's the lighter piece.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? For me, I just really like to watch reality trash TV. Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
So
oh, yeah.
we all need that laughter break. Okay. It's so important because that really gets those lighter emotions back into your body, into your physical body, into your cells. And that fills your hopeful tank instead of your hopeless tank. That it will help you. If it's reality trash, if it's talking to your dog, if it's playing with your dog, if it's playing with your kitties or blowing bubbles, even whatever it is that you can do to get yourself back into that ease of happiness and laughter, totally go for it.
Yeah. And for me, it's The Bachelor. I don't know what about that show. And I literally am like, okay, that's it. I'm not watching anymore. And then I just get hooked in again.
Yeah.
This is just relaxing.
It's a cycle. It's fine. I'm not judging because I'm there with you.
This is really bad, but I have to say, I have never, ever missed a season. I have watched every season since that Bachelor has started and never missed one, but here we go. Yeah. So, and what about Mercury Retrograde? If you can share with us what that is? And because that was in January. And so that kind of brings out that darker energy. And then then I guess 5 days after it comes, like the tech issues where
it's not even over after it's over. It's not even over. It's so funny because usually when Mercury retrograde happens, which is about 4 times a year, I am like, all right, we're going to be fine. We're going to be gung-ho about this. We're going to be ahead of it. So we're just not going to even worry about it. We're not going to put the focus and attention into it. And by it, what I really mean is technology, because Mercury in retrograde is famous for messing up technology. It's famous for communication getting rattled and full of confusion and indecision. So usually I feel better if I stay ahead of it and I just don't play into that fear. So maybe try that first of all next time. Second of all, when that doesn't work, you just got to let it go, because the fighting, the computers and the technology and everything just makes it worse. And it feeds into that negative energy. And I know that I'm sitting here saying, okay, when your computer is broken and it's not working, or the internet is off for the 15th time, don't get frustrated. I know that that's ridiculous, but really just go outside and take a walk, go do something else that completely shifts your energy so that you're not so focused and so frustrated, because that's really what feeds Mercury in retrograde. And it really is all about presenting opportunities again for growth. And you talked about darkness. So opportunities for growth in our shadow. Our shadow is an aspect of our personality that we want to start healing. So like limiting beliefs, for example, whatever it is that you believe about yourself that's creating limitations, those are things that pop up during Mercury retrograde to help shine a light again on the opportunities that you have to heal. So, like I said, I'm not perfect. I didn't do that in January. I don't even know how I made it through January. Looking back, like, oof, that was just a month of like not having any awareness. So, my suggestion would be to go into the next retrograde. We've got a while, so we've got time. Thank goodness. Good break here. But go into it just knowing that you're going to do your best, and that if Mercury is going to mess with the technology, it's really beyond your control. The only control you have is your reaction to it. So go move on and go do something else, like going outside, especially because it's going to be warmer the next time that it's in retrograde. Go outside, connect with Mother Nature, ground, and get away from the technology so that by the time you come back, you're in a completely different state of being and you can cope with whatever's happening better. And your reaction is going to be more of an easier response rather than that reaction of like, oh,
Yeah. And I used to have that a lot where I literally could see myself banging my head against the wall and like frustration and going, why is this not like, what the heck? And even like I need to get a new keyboard because my keyboard somehow double types like all the letters. It's like TTT and SSS. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm trying to like type really fast. And someone's like, my husband's like, why are you pounding away? So it's interesting. And then to take a step back, I'm like, because it is, and there's no point getting yourself all riled up about these things, right? It is a choice, but it is to see yourself, oh boy, there I go again. I'm getting frustrated. Go take a break. How do we, the self-care piece and stepping back on that.
Yeah. And Sarah, I just remembered something. The mass conscious energy, why I really like connecting and understanding the moon cycles is because the mass conscious energy is really easy to pick up on. And that's something that I really didn't do a good job of in January. So there's a podcast called Lunar Lover, and she makes a new episode about twice a month following the new moon or full moon. But she goes into depth about how the moon is going to affect things like Mercury retrograde and what to expect. So having that podcast is really super helpful. Also, it's like 10 or 15 minutes, but having that podcast is helpful so that you know what's coming so that then you can plan how you're going to cope with it.
Yeah, exactly. To see, because a lot of times we don't even know we're doing any of this stuff, and then we look back on January and went, what happened?
Yep.
And so our next thing with grounding. So for years, I was just felt this like floating, or there was like this anxiousness, or there was just something that I was not, as I realized later, grounded, and not until I work. And so what I do for the grounding piece, and then kind of share some of your tips. I do a thing where I take the energy in the room. So it's like if there's energy of jealousy or energy of anger, or energy of sadness, grief, whatever it is, so you name that color, and it's like all the jealousy in the room is orange, and you visualize it, and then you can see it going down. So first of all, you set up your grounding cord, which goes down to the center of the earth. And then you can see the energy like shooting down this cord, and then being dispersed throughout the earth. I don't know. I find that the visual side of these things really helps me. So you can shoot it down, and then each color, and then didn't realize that half this energy was in you. It was all around you, and you've taken on other people's energy. So I do a lot of work with people and things like that. And then sometimes you've taken on their energy and it's not yours. And so how do you shoot it down? So that's kind of what I do. But what's
I really love that visualization. When you were talking about it, I got chills. So I'm going to definitely have to try it. I also love doing something very similar to that. So I love sending my energy back down into the earth through the cord and connecting it to the core of the earth, and then letting that energy come back up into my body. And recently I just recorded a rainbow meditation for my YouTube playlist for Spirit Baby Communication. And the whole idea behind it is that you are connecting to the earth, but then you're bringing up every color of the rainbow into your body and through each chakra. So it's about a 10-minute process. It doesn't take too long, but it really rejuvenates your connection with Mother Earth so that you do feel grounded and stable and strengthening, or strengthened, and not so floaty and confused or indecisive. You're just more grounded and more warrior woman or warrior man and secure in yourself. So that's a great visualization in a couple months, because I know you have snow on the ground, but in a couple months, you could also go outside, stomp your bare feet on the ground, and breathe 10 times. If you can't go outside because you do have snow on the ground, well, then right now, after you listen to this podcast, you can go run your hands underwater and maybe even use some salt, because we all have salt in our kitchen. But salt is really good for cleansing. So even washing your hands with the water and the salt, that will cleanse some of that energy away. You're talking about picking up other people's energy. We all pick up other people's energy. So washing our hands with salt is extremely cleansing. And then also, just another hint for shielding, a really great visualization is to imagine that you've got a cloak around yourself. So pulling up that hood of a cloak on your head, and then visualizing zipping up a cloak underneath your feet and then all the way up to your chin, and telling that energetic shield to not allow any negative energy into your aura or your body. I know that it sounds really woo-woo and just silly, but it is so helpful, especially when you're going to all these doctor visits, or you're, meeting all these people on Zoom. Even Zoom, you can still absorb people's energy. So having that cloak and then using those grounding tips, really helpful in creating awareness and letting go of that heavy negative energy that we were talking about.
Yeah, I find with the grounding piece just helps me. I don't need to ask 20 people, what do you think I should do? I just have this quiet knowing, like I consider myself a pretty decisive person. So, but that just even makes it even better. When I'm grounded, I don't feel all jangly, and, yeah, that's interesting on that piece to see, because many people especially in the fertility journey, with times of uncertainty, we don't know, that side of things. And so it just may have us going off in 10 different, directions, trying to, especially if you're a planner like I am, like, I basically want to, fix it, control it, make it happen. So how do you and then that's all that constriction and, shoulders to the ears. How do you open up to receive? And there's like that calm, just that knowing.
Yes.
The knowing that everything's fine.
And you're so right. It is so calm and it's so quiet. So getting through all that noise and heavy feelings and distractions is helpful in getting back to that calm, quiet voice.
Mm-hmm. And then manifesting. This is something that I've been working on too with, I'm manifesting myself on a trip. See ya. Yeah. Somewhere warm. And so, literally like seeing, like having my feet in the sand, and like, what does that feel like? And I'm sitting at a table and I'm having a beverage, and it's really hot outside, but and I'm not into the sun. So I have like an umbrella, on top, and, but the sand piece and the heat of my feet in the sand. So being able to really like place myself there. So, what's your take for manifesting?
That is my number one tip, is what are you feeling? And by feeling, I mean all of your senses. So the warm sand on your feet, priceless, because that really puts you there energetically. And when you're able to put yourself into your manifestation energetically, your body and your brain, there's really no understanding that you're not actually there. So the universe is going to work harder to make that happen, because you're already there energetically. So your feet feeling warm from the sand. How does it smell? What are you seeing? What are you feeling inside your body and outside of your body? Especially paying attention to that inner part of like, what's your heart feeling? What are your thoughts in those moments when you're in that when you're at the beach, getting to who Sarah is, for an example, who is Sarah on the beach? Getting to that person when you're right now not there, over here, and really making that connection and getting yourself there more so that you can make it happen easier and faster. Now, a tip before you do start feeling into those manifestations is to first activate your energy. So speaking of warm, an exercise that you can do is simply just sit down and start breathing and start visualizing a building bright ball of light behind your belly button. And that bright ball of light is yellow for the sun. Basically, that's our solar plexus. So we want that light to glow with every single breath and get bigger and bigger and bigger and deeper and deeper and deeper throughout our whole body. So we want to start sending it up and we want to start sending it down. We want our whole body to be vibrating that beautiful yellow light so that we're a clear, clean vessel, and then start doing that manifesting ritual where we're imagining us in that situation, whatever it is that you're trying to intend and manifest, how we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we're doing, all the things. And writing it down too is really helpful. Painting a whole picture, if you will. And if you really do paint, then go ahead and paint. I'm better at writing instead of painting, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah, and sometimes if we're picturing like manifesting our child or a toddler or maybe a little older child, sometimes it can be hard to see like manifesting the pregnant belly and then the baby, like some of that. So see where you are. Like maybe you start with the beach vacation or you start with something.
Yeah.
Instead of going straight. Yeah, because some of the other things, unless that's totally working for you, sometimes people do find a bit of a block on that, or it's hard to visualize or manifest the pregnant belly, but we can manifest the 3-year-old. What's your take on some of that piece if it feels not quite aligned?
I agree with you completely, because when you are thinking through and feeling through those manifestations, you are basically creating your magnet for that manifestation to come to you. So if you feel resistance, do not ignore it. Start working through it. So that suggestion of maybe if you can't visualize what it feels like to be pregnant or seeing that pregnant belly, then maybe you can visualize having a 3-year-old. Maybe you can visualize their birthday party. Maybe you can visualize picking out clothes for them. However it looks, kind of think through it, work through it, and figure out what feels easier and lighter and go with that. Again, no room for shame, no room for guilt here. We're not even worried about that. We're just really focusing on how to make that magnet stronger so that those manifestations can come to you. So if it's something easier, then totally do it. 100%. And then work your way up, because once you start, it really does get a lot easier to follow through with something small. And then you just build it over time.
Mm-hmm. And then with journaling there, this is some journal prompts, and really if journaling works for you to, light a candle and sort of for 2022, we were talking about their intentions, but to flip that around, we were talking in the beginning to sort of more about how do I want to feel in 2022. Mm-hmm. And I think, yes, obviously on the fertility journey, right, we can place joy on hold, all the things that we love to do. We're spending hours and hours. I speak to women all the time. It's mostly, we're coaching couples, but it's mostly the women that are doing the research. It's hours, like 3 to 4 hours a day of research. And then instead of feeling empowered and the level of learning, it's overwhelmed, confused, and like, oh my goodness, where do I go? And so, sort of those, how do you want to feel for, in 2022? Did you want to speak a little bit about that one?
Yes. I really feel that it is super important to address how you do feel, even if it's negative, first of all. So sometimes for journaling, if I'm not feeling positive and I'm feeling more hopeless than hopeful, I will do a 15-minute journal dump where I just dump, and I can put whatever I want in my journal and it's acceptable. It really lets my heart feel heavier and my brain lets my heart feel lighter when I journal through and I brain dump all of that stuff, because then I can easily move into the more of, okay, I've dumped all of that now. So now how do I want to feel in 2022? How do I want to feel for the rest of February? If I didn't like how January went, well then great. I have the choice now to decide how February is going to flow. So how is February going to flow? How am I going to allow the rest of 2022 to go? And if you're listening to this right now and you're like, okay, great, that sounds really good. And then you sit down to journal and you're like, I have no idea. You know what? Journal for 3 pages and write, I don't know what to journal about. I don't know what to journal about. Keep trying until all of a sudden you're going to start just getting yourself into like a journal trance. And then things are going to start coming through and you're going to start digging down deeper into your soul, and you'll find some beautiful things that you write out.
Yeah, because sometimes you might be guarded, right? Where like, okay, I don't know if I can feel that. It's too painful. It's, obviously being on the journey we work with people that have been on it for, 2 years or more. So there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of heartbreak, and then the uncertainty, and then the, wanting it now, which leads to the impatience and the frustration, all of it. So to get that out, but then as you say, yeah, if you can't think of it, it's like, it might be like locked down inside there, right?
Yeah. And if you even have to just journal about what you did for the day, one of my clients did that just recently because I've been trying to get her to journal for months. And she said, all right, Nichole, and I finally did it. And I journaled for about a week about my day. And I just had no idea what I was even talking about. It was just, I did this, I wore this, I ate this, I did this. Oh, it was really great. I was like, okay, so then what happened? And then she was like, oh, well, I did that for a week. And then finally I just like my wall came down and I've been journaling through these deep-seated issues that are all of a sudden coming up to present themselves to heal and I'm clearing them. I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. I used to have
So
like, when I journaled, it was like a robot. Like today I did this. It was like, I'm like, what am I even saying? Like, oh, I went over here and it's so surface level.
But see, even that's powerful because you're getting rid of all that surface stuff, all those distractions. And once you do that for long enough, you're like, well, there's really nothing left to journal about there. So let's move deeper.
Which is protection mode, right? So it's like, yeah, like you're guarding yourself from feeling too much. But then it'll come out and it'll seep out through the cracks, right? You'll be yelling at your husband or having a meltdown in traffic.
Yep.
Which, yeah, I don't really go to many places anymore, but when the traffic was there, yeah, I would having like, literally, I'm like, how I used to drive was the most aggressive idiot ever. I don't even know what the heck was going on. I wouldn't let anybody in. I was like speeding. Now I'm like waving people over. Here you go. I'm like, I don't know, just a lot of just anger has been my thing, right? Which is under there is fear and all the rest of it. So it's interesting to be able to recognize some of that stuff. And so some other journal prompts to consider. So biggest desires for 2022. Obviously, you're listening to this podcast. Your biggest desire is to have your child in 2022. And so what do you say around that piece? If we're trying to, same with those affirmations where like, I am a mother, which may feel like, ooh, that's too hardcore to go there. Like, where do we start smaller? Same with like the biggest desire, obviously, is the child. But what if that's feeling, I don't know, it might not feel right for someone to say that, or what's your take?
Yeah. I would say, what are those feelings or situations that are leading up to that? Or if you want to flip it and do again the other side of it and work with the future, how does it feel and what does it look like to already have that in your life? Because you can totally journal with the intention, what your intention is for 2022, right? Well, what if you journal about a day in your life 5 years from now? See and feel into that and what that typical day is. What show is on that your child loves? Like Coco Melon. If you guys don't know about Coco Melon, trust me, you will soon. Feeling into those things though, because that with 5 or 10 years down the road, that feels a lot easier usually than just right here, right now. But keeping that, what do I want to manifest in 2022, or how do I want 2022 to turn out? Well, you have that one outcome that you want, but then maybe shifting into, okay, if it feels too heavy, well, then in a number of years, this is what my perfect future day is going to look like. So then you're again getting back into that manifestation cycle where you're feeling into it and you're placing yourself in those shoes and you can really get into the details.
Yeah, I find those manifestation sessions where it's like the what will happen in that perfect day of you'll wake up and how will you have your breakfast, who's there, where are you? Yeah, the whole entire walking through the whole entire day in the manifestation is like the most amazing thing. If you haven't tried that, to really to do that exercise of just sitting with that, and there's just a level of calm that comes out of that.
Yeah, because you're in the hopeful tank again instead of the hopeless tank again.
And then how to be open to miracles.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years, the mass conscious energy has really shifted our focus to be closed off to that. So the choice here is really allowing yourself to be open to miracles. The choice to allow yourself to being hopeful. Now, when I say that, I don't mean to not feel through the negative, harder emotions. But what I do mean is what we talked about earlier was returning to gratitude and the little tiny things that are going right, because those tiny things really build up over time. And the more that you focus on those small things, the more you are able to grow into that hopefulness and allowing yourself to believe again that miracles do exist and that miracles happen, especially for 2022. One of my coaches that I work with all the time, her guides keep telling her that 2022 is the year of miracles. And I believe it because we're really just ready to transform. And I feel like we're transforming as a mass conscious. So everything, all these things that have been bubbling up over the last few years to be healed, I think we're finally moving into a different level of ascension and we're getting there. And allowing yourself to hold on to that hope is 100% okay. It's 100% okay to have that hope and that desire and that feeling, even if you feel heavy and you feel like it might be impossible. Allow for a little bit of room and let that room of hopefulness to grow through gratitude of those little things that are going right.
Yeah. The more you look for the good, the more good you'll see. If you're looking for all the obstacles and challenges and things like that, then you'll see a lot of those too. And another prompt for journaling. So how committed are you to work on your inner healing? This is interesting, right? Like to me, this is a journey that never ends. And to see your patterns, to see how you show up, see what you're doing. And a lot first is like self-awareness, and then you can be able to change it. But if we're in automatic pilot, we never notice. And we're just, for me, it was anger that like is the thing that I will throw out if there's a health issue going on with anybody. I'm like, I want to fix it. I want to Dr. Google it. I want to like attack it. And I come off like a maniac with it. So it's interesting. I'm like, oh, there I go again. And so to see where you go off, and is it, I go to anger, other people go to crying, and crying is good. I'm not a natural crier. It goes to anger. So, and for me, when I can release and do some crying and release that is really powerful. Because underneath all of that is fear, right? That's why you're
exactly
that way.
And figuring out what that fear is through journaling is really helpful, because when you get into your journaling mode, you are busy really channeling your own inner thoughts and your own inner feelings. So once you've got a good setup going with your journaling, you can get into that. Well, how open am I? If I'm feeling some resistance right now, why and what is that resistance? Where is it coming from? And trying to figure out that origin or the purpose of that is really powerful, because the awareness of it itself is clearing and healing. And that's so easy.
Yeah, it is a process really, that. So to give yourself grace, and it doesn't happen over time, but the fact to even to start looking at that and to be open to, how can I start to heal your the inner work? Yeah. And then the last one here as a prompt to think of, how do you want to change your perceptions and thoughts? It's interesting, right? We get caught on, this person, whatever, how we're showing up, how those same thought patterns, and you're on that automatic pilot going round and round and round. And, and it might be that it's like this, even if like an RE may have told you don't rank through your only option, you're going to struggle. You have poor egg quality, all these words from a well-meaning person may be stuck in your subconscious, right? So how do you let that out? And really, how true is that? And if it worked for someone else, it can work for you. So, and we'll talk about this as kind of going into the hopeful mode, but to see what do you got on a loop going around in your mind.
Exactly. Especially because when you pay attention to negativity, even when somebody like that, who is someone who is like in a power of authority or position, authority or power is what I was trying to say. We tend to put those people on a pedestal, and just as a general, like overall statement, we tend to believe what they say, right? We take it as our truth. Well, don't take it as your truth, because you have the choice to believe in miracles. You have the choice to believe that there are powers beyond your control and your imagination. And not everything that we say is right. How many times have you personally done or said something that was completely wrong and you were surprised by the outcome? The same thing goes here. So holding on to that hope and gratitude, of course, always allowing yourself to go through the anger. Honestly, I really feel like there's a lot of power in going through your anger, going through the tears, and then recollecting yourself afterwards and really having that awareness and remembering that there are miracles, there is hope, and miracles almost seem like such a like just word that like doesn't happen. I don't know, like it just feels really heavy, but
Yeah, like
I've been
out
working
there.
on
Oh my goodness, the miracle is
like
waiting.
impossible. Yeah, like or magical, like Disney or something, like I need my fairy godmother to come. But miracles are really waking up every day. Miracles are my coffee maker because it makes these magical beans turn into this liquid that makes me so happy every day. Changing your perception, like you're saying, changing your perception and going more into the positive mode instead of that dark, heavy, negative mode.
Mm-hmm. And so now you are going to pull some cards for us for the month of February, and I'll let you.
Okay, so first of all, I'm super excited. I have this journal that my whole life is in this. It's a planning journal thing, and the quote for February is keep calm in chaos and grow in grace. And I was like, yes, welcome February. Please come. So I pulled 3 cards, and it's so funny. I pulled these cards before we started talking, Sarah. So the first card, I can't wait to see a reaction. The first card is perspective. None of this matters. Zoom out, common ground. So I feel like that's a recap of this entire episode.
Yeah.
Zoom out. And I know you can see me, Sarah, but there's an earth right there. And look how far away, like the earth is tiny. It's not even the size of my pinky on this card. So it's a reminder to literally zoom out and take yourself out of that situation, become an eagle's eye, just look at it from a distance and let go of it. Now, the second card is Trust the Niggle. So these are Rebecca Campbell cards, and she is from the UK. So that basically means trust your feelings, trust your gut, trust that nagging intuition. And it's really beautiful because these women, actually, 2 of them have their hands by their womb.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So what is that niggling feeling trying to tell you? Again, journal about it. And then the third card that I pulled from a beautiful mermaid deck is the card Hope. And in the card, she is turned away with the sun behind her, and the sun is casting a beautiful rainbow. She's completely missing it because she's looking the opposite direction and scowling. So you have that comparison there of, do you want to be hopeless or do you want to be hopeful? So filling your full tank, letting your less than tank go, and what that looks like for you. Again, that's another idea for a journaling prompt is, how do you fill your hopeful tank? Do you focus enough on self-care? Do you focus enough on connection with your partner? How to get that full tank going. And I really feel like that's kind of the message for February is how you can make sure that the rest of 2022 is full of hope. This is the month to do that.
Yeah, turning towards it, right? Where here we are marching along with our little plan, and we're not looking. Like the hope is all around us. So a lot of times, like the synchronicities, and we the signs are everywhere, and if we're not looking, we miss them, and then like everything connects, and if you kind of get on that plane of the energetic plane there, there's just a level of, I find when I ever do this stuff, the word that comes up over and over again is peace. It's this peaceful feeling. And then, leaning into that hope. It's interesting where you're like, the person is turning the other way and she's doesn't even see it. Yeah.
Like if you really think about it, how many times have we missed beautiful opportunities like that because we have been down in the dumps, honestly?
And the Zoom piece, I used to run a mindfulness fertility series with a therapist, and as part of that, there was a session on perspective, and it was zooming out actually. And we started with like the little teeny, it was like a rooster's head, and then we zoomed out and we found out it was a postcard, and then we found out it was a guy on a plane. Then we found out, then the whole thing was the world. And so a lot of times we're like stuck in the minutia. of all these things, and how we kind of move out and shift our perspective, and how do we look at things a little differently. And a lot of it is too, is, we're talking crap to ourselves. How do we would never say these to, a friend or anyone else like that.
Yes. And yet how many times do we do that to ourselves? I mean, it's just another thing to become aware of.
Yeah. And the trust and niggle, that I think that one is like, to me, that's like trust. Like there's those little things, literally every time I've gone against my gut, like now I have to just sort of, I don't need to call it the 20 people. I sit with myself and wait a minute. Okay. What's feeling right for me on that piece? Pull back and really listen to yourself. Like what? Because sometimes we just can't hear it. There's so much noise.
Yeah. And if you do feel that way, where there's a lot of noise, again, return to those grounding techniques that we talked about, the shielding, and then that energy activation where you're building that yellow ball of light in your stomach and then spreading it all throughout your body so that you can activate your own inner power.
I like that one with the cape too, right? So You're protecting yourself, and if it's crystals or wherever else, kind of that resonates with you. And I'm going to put in a link in here. There's a sacred womb meditation. So you'll have that in the show notes. And then Nichole's got some other downloads here. So spirit baby communication that you can check out. So we'll have the links in the show notes. So any final thoughts for our chat today, Nichole?
I'm feeling much better about February. January is behind us. So I say we all move forward into our hopeful tank and let that hopeless tank go.
Awesome. Love it. Great.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.